Good morning. Welcome to Better Thyself segment of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. In our social interaction, after the blood relations, the most important relationship is that of a friend. And there are stories showing great friendship at one time or the other. Classics are full of it, so is the modern life. But the reality is that while friendships can be very informative, a very joyful part of life, they can also suck the life out of you. And many times you would find that what you consider to be close friendship, not when genuine intimacy has been shared, but superficial one, then you feel hurt at times by thoughtless behavior, by lack of trust, and no amount of shared history and relationship, even of decades, can make that friendship okay. Those relationships, those friendships are toxic and they are extremely harmful, and you want to break up. But then you think, well, such a time has passed, we have been together, we should not break up. But if you look at the signs that are evident that the friendship is becoming toxic, that will enable you to break up that friendship. The reality is that the most of us are not aware that a friendship has come to an end. There's a lifespan for everything, so it is for friendship. And when that lifespan has lived its life, it has outlived its utility. So what are the signs which show that it is time now to snap the ties, to break up with a friend, however close he may be? So today I'm going to tell you about 10 signs which are very clearly indicative that your friendship has reached a dead end and you need to break it. The first is you dread the call and the text of those friends. This is the most obvious sign, and it can be really hard to admit. But if you're all getting out of friend, it's stress, hurtful feeling, arguments, cutting remarks, dismissiveness. Why bother? It's important that when you are having a friendship, it should make you feel valued, loved, and liked. And it can enable you to be authentic. Authenticity is linked with mental health. But if you are constantly scanning what you have to say before somebody, you are using a lot of energy that can be draining. So why drain that energy? Conserve it. And if you always say, well, this guy is going to give me a call and I'm going to get bored, or he sends a message which is somehow or the other putting you on the edge of an abyss, when you see your inbox of those letters, you want to read that message, you don't want to read it. You are in a situation which is very perplexing, very puzzling. So, then what happens? Look at the history of the friendship. You would find that these friends are basically either having negative impact or are just parasites. So if you dread the call and text of a friend, the first sign, say goodbye. Second, you are locked in a competition against your will. Now a green flag for friendship. A good sign is that you are rooting for each other to succeed. You want your friend to be successful, your friend wants you to be successful. But if you are competing with each other, even if the competition is not expressed, then this is a sure sign that your friendship is not there, or it has decayed. A real friend is generally pleased when, for example, you land a promotion, get engaged, and not so real a friend whoever take your news as a personal front. Usually because that friend is not honest and is jealous of your progress. He is with you, maybe some transitory gain, maybe some for benefit, maybe even for show off that he is your friend. But typically, that person would become sour and would denigrate your joy. Probably you got the promotion because so and so quit last month. So this was a vacancy, nobody else was available, and you got it. That means you should not be happy. Or they might say, that was the best proposal you can come with. Typically you see the behavior. When you have that friend who wants. He is jealous that you are progressing. He is jealous that you are happy. And competition can be a way of expressing something too vulnerable to say, like, I'm inferior. He won't admit I'm inferior, but he'll make you feel inferior. So it's better idea to touch on that. And the thing required is act out, cut the Gordian knot, take that decisive action and say goodbye. The third sign is that you become a dumping ground, a human dumping ground. Venting is something we all do for good reason, and we let out our frustration, we let out even our family's irritation, a job dissatisfaction, so that you receive a catharsis, a sublimation of their emotions. But there's a point at which venting, letting go of your grievances can make you feel worse. And if you're someone absorbing someone else's constant rage, it's like you are collecting the vomit of the other person. So this is a situation when it's not friendship, it's dependence. In the human terms, think of friendship as a meal. The appetizer is a fine experience. The entry is a mutual vulnerability. And the dessert is relying on each other for support. Friendship needs all these things. And if you just have one, or one person is getting all the things and the other isn't, then it's not a friendship. So, this is a third sign that you are being made a dumping ground for grievances, for the failures and everything. The fourth, you never know what will set them off. To be frank, you have to be predictable. And in fact, I feel that a friendship is a series of predictions. If I'm vulnerable, you'll be safe and affirmative. If I'm suffering, you would be supporting me. If I do something nice for you, you will appreciate it. But if this predictability is lost, then you lose a sense of security. If a friend tends to be touchy and otherwise sharp with you when you really expect it, that can be devastating. You cannot have ambivalent friendship. In which sense? The predicability has been lost. And you don't know, if you have a problem, you go to a friend, you don't know whether he'll brush you off or be empathetic and tell you proper advice. The result, you will experience higher blood pressure after meeting him. Because what you counted on a friend is not a friend. In other words, you prefer predictability jerk to someone who might be nice or mean at a given appointment. So unless you want to be in a state of constant anxiety and hypertension, this kind of friendship is not worth being called a friendship. Then, if a friend continuously judges you, you did not do this thing right, you did not do this thing this way, or ridicules you, how could you be so rude? How could you be so mean? or giving you advice when is not required, unsolicited opinion, then that's not a friend. Then that person is a drag on your personality. You know, there's a concept in psychology called the identity affirmation, which means you have a sense of who you are independently of others. And if you are high in a identity affirmation, then you are more likely to maintain friendship because you are imposing your values. But a person who imposes the values, assuming that everyone should have the same values, then that person is more an autocrat and a dictator than not worth being a friend. When you get unsolicited advice or judge somebody, you are actually doing an imposter friend and you are imposing your values. Friendship is not imposing, nor is it accepting being imposed on. So, if your friend cannot get into his head or her head around the idea that other opinions can be as good or better beyond your own, you cannot confidently share your opinion with that friend. And if you cannot share your opinion with a friend, then what to do with such a friend? Isn't it better to dump that friend? The sixth sign is that whenever you meet that friend is talking about the past. And remember, it's the lowest form of conversation. The only form of conversation we are having is inside jokes, and had to be those memories and soul things you have in common. For some time it's okay, but it's hard to sustain a real close friendship on those past memories. You've got to move on. And if somebody is constantly reminding you what you did as a teenager, how the college principal admonished you, how the school teacher changed you, howsoever the shared history may be, it is of no value if it's locking the sight of identity. So it's important to have friends who can offer you real intimacy. And the more you recognize that the friends offer an adjust expectation to the changed time, to the changed circumstances, you would be less frustrated. So if a guy is living in the past, he has not moved on, then we can be sure it's the expiry date is passed. And you don't consume medication which has passed the expiry date, throw it. Then there are friends who are drama magnets. Every time you hang on, it's a different story. My co-workers hate me. I had a fight with my spouse. My children don't listen to me. The purpose is that they drag your energy. Fine, somebody is really suffering. A friend is meant to give a shoulder for somebody to weep on. But to be drama magnet for amplifying even minor things and making mountains of molehill, that's not done. And such a person is in fact insecure, has narcissistic, because that person is not thinking about your needs, your values. So, bid goodbye. Then the other person is they are habitually critical. And not only critical, they are scared. So that scare, that fear, triggers that fear in you. So there's a theory again, a risk regulation theory. You evaluate how much to invest in a relationship, and it's based on how likely you are to be rejected. So flakiness of behavior can destroy a friendship, because if they're too reverent, they can't hold up to social commitments. It's too easy to interpret flaking. And once you feel that flaking is there, it's better to withdraw from other person before that person withdraws. Don't forget, there are times in life when each one of us breaks, but it's a limit. Otherwise, the person suffers from a mental health condition. So you need to communicate it. You can tell the person, look here, I have a lot on my plate. It doesn't mean that I don't love you, but I love myself also, and I love myself a bit more than I love you. However good you may be. So if a person is continuing, then the fear other friends. When the chips are down, such friends are nowhere to be found. Such friends are not disappointing, they are hurtful. It's betrayal of friendship, because you are more sensitive to rejection in vulnerable moments. It's hard to answer a support when you need it, and if you don't get it, you feel all the worse. So once you have seen a friend doesn't come to you, a friend in time is a friend, friend in need is a friend indeed. So once is sufficient. See, even if once a person has decision, never depend on him and don't consider him as a friend. And last, 10th, we are always chasing that friend. Now, if a person wants to see another person, they find a way. If they don't want to see, well, why keep trying? Don't always try to chase your friend. Don't always try to reach them. If you have initiated every dinner date, if you have traveling to meet them, and there is no response, then that's not friendship. As a matter of fact, you may not be in their mind at all, and that friendship is just a facade, a social relationship, which has no relevance. So reach out so that those people do not drain you out of energy, that you are out of the toxic relationships. Try to assume that people like you until you have a clear evidence otherwise. But the moment you find the tiniest hint, or one of those signs, 10 signs which I've talked, just say, goodbye, my friend. It was nice having you. Perhaps we meet in another lifetime, in another age, but till that time, au revoir. Be happy till we meet again. Thank you.